Clara Wynne lay still on the metal bed as the medics rushed around her. The white lights above flickered, and the low hum of the orbital hospital filled the air. She had been working at the outer mining colony on New Terra when the accident happened. A power conduit explosion, they said. Her suit had protected her from most of it, but her readings had gone strange on the shuttle ride back. Dr. Elias Trent adjusted the medical scanner above her. "You're safe now," he said in a calm voice. "Just stay still. We're going to take a reading." Clara gave a weak smile. "Feels like I've been hit by a ship," she muttered. Her breathing was shallow, her uniform burned along one arm. The medics nodded, attaching small patches to her skin. The scanner began to glow, its lens rotating as it swept over her body. For a moment, everything seemed normal. The steady hum of the machine filled the room. Then without warning the sound changed. It became sharper, uneven, like static. One of the medics frowned. "Doctor, the readings are off." Elias looked at the monitor. The graphs jumped wildly, and strange symbols began to flash across the screen. He tried to reset it, but the machine wouldn't respond. The humming grew louder. Then a single line of red text appeared. "Species not in database." The words blinked once, twice, then the scanner made a high-pitched whine. Sparks flew from its sides. The staff jumped back as smoke poured out from the vents. Elias reached for the power switch, but before he could shut it down, the machine burst with a crack of blue light. Clara's body lifted slightly from the bed, her hair floating as if caught in an invisible wind. The lights in the room dimmed for a heartbeat, and the instruments around her began to flicker. Then it was over. The scanner went dark. The air smelled of ozone and burning metal. The medics froze. One of them whispered, "What in the void just happened?" Elias pushed forward, checking Clara's pulse. It was steady. Her skin glowed faintly under the light, just for a second, like a shimmer beneath the surface. Then it was gone. Clara blinked slowly. "What happened?" she asked weakly. Elias didn't answer at first. His hands were shaking. He looked around at the ruined scanner, the melted wires, the black smoke curling toward the ceiling. No machine should have reacted that way, not from a simple scan. He swallowed hard and said, "The scanner overloaded. But you're all right. Just rest." One of the medics muttered, "That thing exploded because of her blood sample." Another glared at him, but the words hung in the air. They moved her to another room away from the damage. Elias followed, his mind racing. He'd seen equipment fail before, but never like that. Machines didn't just reject someone's data. They didn't erase their own logs. He looked down at the small data pad that had recorded part of the scan. Only a single message remained. Unknown classification. Energy signature detected. Elias glanced toward the room where Clara lay resting. She looked human, completely, undeniably human. Brown eyes, light skin, faint freckles on her cheeks. But the machines didn't lie. Something about her was not what it seemed. Later that night, when the medics had gone and the halls grew quiet, he stood by her bed. She was asleep, her face calm, her breathing even. A faint blue light pulsed beneath her skin, so soft it could have been a trick of the eye. He whispered to himself, "Who are you, Clara Wynne?" The hospital lights flickered once more as if in answer. And for a heartbeat, the entire power grid of the orbital station dimmed, just long enough for the stars outside to shine a little brighter. Clara woke to the sound of quiet voices. The room was dim, filled with the soft hum of machines and the faint scent of antiseptic. Her head throbbed, but she felt strangely calm. She blinked a few times, her eyes adjusting to the pale light. Around her stood several doctors, their faces tense, their eyes full of confusion and fear. Dr. Elias Trent was there too, leaning against the counter, his arms crossed. He looked tired but relieved to see her awake. "Easy, Clara," he said in a gentle tone. "You've been out for a while." She tried to sit up, but a sharp ache ran through her side. "What happened?" she asked softly. "The scanner, it exploded, didn't it?" Elias nodded. "It did. You should have been hurt, but you weren't. Not even a scratch." The other doctors exchanged uncertain glances. One whispered something to another, and Clara caught only a few words: energy surge, unregistered pattern, not possible. "What are they talking about?" she asked. Elias hesitated. He looked at the others, then back at her. "They're just worried," he said finally. "We don't understand what caused the malfunction." Clara frowned. "But it was the scanner, not me." "Yes," Elias said slowly, "but it happened when it tried to read your blood." The words hung in the air. Clara felt her heartbeat quicken. "So you think I did that?" "No," Elias said quickly. "Machines can fail for many reasons. But, he trailed off and rubbed the back of his neck. I wanted to make sure. I ran a small test the old way. No computers, no scanners, just a manual analyzer. It's slower but safe. He picked up a small device from the counter, shaped like a glass tube filled with faintly glowing liquid. Inside, a few drops of her blood floated in suspension. Tiny sparks of light shimmered within it, flickering like stars. Clara stared at it, eyes wide. It's moving, she whispered. Blood doesn't do that. I know, Elias said quietly. At first I thought it was a trick of the light. But the energy readings are real. Your blood is producing a low-level electromagnetic pulse every few seconds. Alive somehow. Active. The words made no sense to her. You mean I'm sick? No. You're healthy, perfectly healthy in fact. Better than any human I've seen. He looked at her with a mix of awe and concern. Whatever this is, it's not an illness. It's something else. Clara leaned back against the pillow, her thoughts spinning. She could remember the accident, the flash of light in the mining tunnel, the sound of collapsing metal, then darkness. Maybe the radiation had changed something in her. Maybe she had been exposed to something new. But deep down she felt it wasn't that simple. When Elias turned to speak with the others, Clara looked down at her hands. They looked normal, pale skin, faint scars from years of work. But as she focused, she thought she saw something else. A faint glow beneath the surface, moving like veins of light. She blinked and it vanished. Doctor? She asked softly. Am I dangerous? Elias turned, his expression softening. No, he said firmly. You're not dangerous. But people might be afraid of what they don't understand. That's why we keep this quiet for now. Agreed. She nodded slowly. He gave her a reassuring smile. Good. Rest for now. I'll keep working on the results. When he left, the other doctors followed, whispering in low voices. Clara could only hear fragments: genetic anomaly, unknown sequence, energy resonance. She closed her eyes and tried to steady her breathing. But then something strange happened. The heart monitor beside her began to flicker. The screen dimmed, then brightened again. The lights overhead pulsed once, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. Clara stared at the monitor in disbelief. No, she whispered. That's not possible. The pulse steadied again as soon as she calmed down. The lights returned to normal. She sank back into the bed, her mind racing. Whatever was happening to her, it wasn't natural, but it didn't feel wrong either. It was as if something deep inside her had awakened, something that had been waiting all her life. Out in the corridor, Elias looked at the analyzer once more. The energy inside the sample was growing stronger. He tapped the console gently and whispered, "What are you, Clara?" Inside the tube, the glowing lights pulsed again, almost like a heartbeat answering him back. The next morning, the quiet hum of the hospital was gone. The halls were filled with armed guards, their armor marked with the black and gold symbol of the Terran Authority. They moved quickly and without words, taking control of every entrance and locking down the wards. Nurses whispered in fear as data terminals were shut off and files sealed. Clara watched from her bed as two officers stood outside her door. They weren't medics, they were soldiers. One of them looked at her through the glass window with a cold, studying gaze, like she was a specimen, not a person. Dr. Elias Trent argued with them for hours. She could hear his voice through the wall, angry, desperate. "She's not a threat," he said. "You don't even know what you're dealing with." The answer was sharp and official. "That's exactly why she's coming with us, Doctor. Terran Command wants a full analysis." When he came back to her room, he looked defeated. "They're transferring you tonight," he said quietly. "They think you're part of some genetic experiment." Clara frowned. "But I'm not. I was born on New Terra. My parents—" "They already checked," he interrupted softly. "Your family records are gone. Erased from every database." She stared at him, her heart pounding. "What do you mean gone?" Elias rubbed his face with his hands. "It means someone doesn't want you to know who you are." The room went silent. The machines around her hummed softly, but she could feel something underneath the sound, a low vibration like the world itself was whispering to her. When she closed her eyes, she could sense the guards in the hall, the faint buzz of their weapons, even the rhythm of the power grid flowing through the walls. That night, when they sedated her for transport, she drifted into a deep, heavy sleep. And in that sleep she dreamed. The dream wasn't like normal dreams. It felt real, as if she had been pulled somewhere far away. She stood in a vast place filled with light and sound. Shapes moved around her, tall, glowing figures with eyes like stars. Their voices were calm and kind, but they carried power. "You are of the seated ones," they said. Born of the old design. The first spark and the last key. Clara looked down at her hands. In the dream, light flowed through her skin like liquid fire. I don't understand, she said. You were placed among them to awaken when the stars were ready, another voice answered. Humanity was never alone. You are the bridge. The vision shifted. She saw Earth, not as it was now but as it once had been, green and full of oceans. Then she saw ships leaving it, carrying people through the stars, guided by invisible patterns in the sky. Patterns that looked just like the energy she had seen in her blood. Her mind filled with flashes, cities of light, worlds built by hands not entirely human, and a symbol that glowed with the same golden hue as her veins. When she awoke, her heart was racing. The guards were gone, but she could hear movement outside. Dr. Trent was standing near the window, staring at something on his tablet. He turned when she moved. You're awake, he said quietly. They're coming soon. I can't stop them anymore. Clara sat up slowly. Her head ached, but the voices from the dream still echoed in her mind. Elias, she whispered, I saw something. In my sleep. I think I remember who I am. He looked confused. What do you mean? I saw people, no beings. They called themselves the Seated Ones. They said humans weren't the first, just the next. She paused, her voice trembling. They said I was the bridge. Elias stepped closer, his face pale. That word, seated, appeared in the data logs before they were wiped. Before either of them could speak again, the lights in the room flickered. The sound of boots echoed in the hall. Clara could feel the tension in the air, the electricity running through every wall, every wire. Then something strange happened. The power grid around the hospital began to hum louder, responding to her heartbeat. The doors locked themselves. The security system shut down. Elias stared at her. Clara, what did you do? She shook her head, frightened. I don't know. I didn't mean to. He took a step back, realization dawning in his eyes. You're connected to it, all of it. The machines, the energy. It's reacting to you. Outside, the soldiers were shouting, trying to override the controls. But every door they tried refused to open. The whole hospital seemed alive and protecting her. Clara's hands were trembling, faint light glowing beneath her skin again. I can feel them, she whispered. The machines. The power. It's like they're listening to me. Elias put a hand on her shoulder, his voice soft but firm. Then maybe it's time you listen to them too. And as the lights flickered once more, Clara understood. The voices in her dream weren't gone. They were waiting. And somewhere beyond the walls of that hospital, the stars themselves seemed to hum her name. The alarm lights painted the hallways in flashing red as Dr. Elias Trent guided Clara through the narrow maintenance tunnels under the hospital. The air smelled of metal and burnt wiring, and the hum of distant machinery echoed around them. Every few seconds, a voice boomed through the speakers above. Containment breach. All personnel evacuate. Subject 7A is on the move. Clara's heart pounded in her chest. Subject 7A, she muttered. That's what they're calling me now? Elias gave her a quick glance. They don't know what you are, Clara. They're afraid of what they don't understand. She stumbled on a loose panel, but he caught her arm. Her skin was warm, almost glowing faintly in the dark tunnel. The light was soft at first, but with every step, it grew brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. They reached a locked door at the end of the passage. Elias pulled out a small tool and began to hack the control panel. Sparks flickered. It's sealed from the command center, he said. I'll need a minute. Before he could finish, Clara placed her hand on the door. The metal vibrated under her touch, and a wave of blue light rippled through it. With a quiet hiss, the locks disengaged. The door slid open. Elias stared at her in disbelief. You didn't even touch the controls. She looked down at her hand, trembling. I didn't mean to. It just listened. They stepped through into another corridor that led to the docking bay. The sound of boots echoed behind them. Security teams were closing in. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning the area with red beams. One spotted them and swooped down. Elias shouted, "Run!" but Clara didn't move. She turned, raised her hand toward the drone, and everything stopped. The drone froze midair, its lights flickering as though trapped in invisible wires. Then, slowly, its system shut down. It drifted to the floor and went silent. Elias could only stare. You just stopped a military drone without touching it. I don't know how, she said softly, her voice shaking. It feels like the machines can hear me. Like they're part of me. They ran again deeper into the tunnels. The air grew colder, the walls older. These maintenance routes hadn't been used in years. As they passed an old power hub, Clara stopped. The generators hummed weakly, struggling to stay alive. She reached out and brushed her fingers against one of the metal conduits. Instantly the lights flared back to life. The whole section powered on as if it had been waiting for her. Elias turned, breathless. "You're feeding it power?" he said. "From yourself." She looked at him, confused and afraid. "That's not possible." He gave a shaky smile. "Neither is surviving an explosion that destroyed a scanner." The sound of voices echoed again, closer now. They had to keep moving. But something inside Clara had changed. The fear was still there, but beneath it was a strange calm, like she had found a part of herself that had always been asleep. They reached the emergency airlock. Beyond it, the stars shone bright and cold. A single escape shuttle waited on the platform. Elias rushed to open the hatch, but Clara hesitated. "Elias," she said quietly, "what if they're right? What if I'm not human at all?" He turned to face her, his expression serious. "You bleed. You breathe. You care. That's human enough for me." "But the voices," she said. "The dream I had, they said I was one of the seeded ones." He nodded. "Then maybe humans came from them. Maybe you're not different, you're the origin." The words made her heart twist. She looked down at her glowing hands. "Then what am I supposed to do with this?" "Whatever you choose," Elias said simply. "You're not a weapon, Clara. You're proof that humanity didn't start by accident. You're proof that it was meant to be." For a moment, silence filled the airlock. Only the faint hum of the engines broke it. Clara stepped forward and placed her hand on the shuttle's hull. The ship responded instantly, its systems coming online, lights flickering in greeting. Elias smiled. "It listens to you." She nodded slowly. "They all do." As the hatch opened, shouts echoed behind them. The soldiers had reached the tunnel. Clara turned toward the noise, her eyes glowing with soft golden light. The air around her shimmered. Elias reached for her shoulder. "Clara, don't." She raised her hand and the entire tunnel went dark. The soldiers' lights flickered out one by one. When the glow returned, the walls were sealed with melted metal. She lowered her hand, her breathing unsteady. "I didn't hurt them. I just wanted them to stop." Elias nodded, his voice low. "You controlled it." "I don't want to fight anyone," she said softly. "I just want to understand what I am." "Then let's find out," he said. They stepped onto the shuttle. As it lifted off the platform, the stars grew larger in the viewport. The hospital shrank beneath them, its alarms fading into silence. Clara sat beside Elias, watching the light from the engines reflect in her hands. She could still feel the connection, the faint hum of the ship, the rhythm of the stars. He looked at her and said, "You're not an alien, Clara. You're something older." She turned to him, her eyes wide and filled with questions. "Then what am I?" Elias gave a small smile. "Maybe the beginning of what comes next." Outside, the stars pulsed softly, almost as if they were listening. Weeks had passed since the night Clara Wynne and Dr. Elias Trent escaped the hospital. The Terran Authority searched every colony and outpost, but she was nowhere to be found. Her medical files, security records, even her birth documents had vanished from the system. It was as if she had never existed. News spread through the settlements of New Terra. Some said Clara had fled to the frontier worlds, where no scanners or cameras could reach. Others claimed they had seen her in the deep mining sectors, glowing faintly in the dark and healing injured workers with just a touch. A few whispered something stranger, that she had become part of the network itself, her mind living in the data streams that ran between planets. Dr. Elias Trent knew better. He didn't listen to rumors. He remembered the last time he saw her. It had been a quiet night outside the colony's shield dome. The great field shimmered like glass, holding back the dust storms that raged across the wasteland beyond. Elias had been walking there, unable to sleep, when he saw a figure standing near the edge of the barrier. It was Clara. Her hair moved gently in the wind, and her eyes glowed faintly with golden light. She didn't turn when he approached. She just stood still, staring at the stars as if listening to something far away. "I knew you'd find me," she said softly. Elias stopped a few steps behind her. "You shouldn't be here. The Authority is still searching for you." "I know," she said. "But it doesn't matter anymore." He frowned. "What do you mean?" Clara turned slightly and for a moment he could see how calm she was. The fear she once carried was gone. "When the scanner broke, it wasn't because it couldn't read me," she said quietly. "It broke because it recognized me." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "Recognized you?" She nodded. I saw it in my dreams, the seated ones. They weren't just visitors from another world. They were creators. They came to shape life here, to plant pieces of themselves among the stars. We were their children all along. Elias stared at her, unsure what to say. You're saying, humans came from them? I'm saying I carry what they left behind, Clara replied. Something old. Something that waited to wake up. She reached out, pressing her hand against the shield dome. The surface rippled where she touched it, glowing under her fingers. The massive energy field bent and shimmered like a living thing. You can control the dome now? Elias whispered. I can speak to it, she said. To all of it, the machines, the systems, even the power under the ground. It's not control. It's connection. They're all alive in some way and they were waiting for someone to listen. He stepped closer. Then stay. We can help you understand it. Clara turned to face him, her expression kind but sad. Elias, if I stay they'll keep hunting me. And if they find me they'll try to turn me into a weapon. You know they will. He lowered his head. You're right. She smiled faintly. You were the only one who saw me as a person. You didn't treat me like a mystery or a threat. Thank you for that. Elias wanted to speak but his throat felt tight. Where will you go? Clara looked back up at the stars. Everywhere. The network connects every world, every ship, every machine. If I follow it, I can reach places no human has ever seen. Maybe even the ones who came before. The wind grew stronger, and the light around her hands spread across her body. She began to glow, bright but gentle, like sunlight through mist. Elias took a step forward. Clara, wait. She smiled one last time. Don't be afraid, Elias. This isn't an ending. It's just the next beginning. Her body shimmered, breaking apart into threads of golden light. They drifted upward, weaving through the air like ribbons. The light touched the shield dome and the energy field responded, glowing brighter, spreading across the entire horizon. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was gone. Elias stood there for a long time, staring at the stars where she had disappeared. The dome hummed softly as if whispering her name. Days later, strange things began to happen across New Terra. Broken machines started working again without repair. Communication networks fixed themselves. Energy output across the colony doubled overnight. No one could explain it. Elias didn't try to. He only smiled when the lights flickered faintly gold, just for a second, like someone was still watching. He kept her secret even when the investigators came asking. He never told them about the night by the dome. He never told them about the light. But sometimes, when he walked through the quiet halls of the colony, he could hear a faint voice through the hum of the machines, a calm, familiar whisper that said, I'm still here. And somewhere out there, among the stars, Clara Wynne, the woman whose blood had no match, moved through the network, carrying the memory of humanity's forgotten beginning. The stars glowed a little brighter that night as if welcoming her home.